everybody. We're Cash One Pond. We're ready. We got your back, and we're unbeating all the rest of them. Here we go. You ready? Well, you want money? We got money. You need money? We got money. We're Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Money to lend, money to spend. We can put money in your hands. We're Cash One Pond. We're Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. You don't have to worry. Sometimes when you're a little broke and you just need something to get over the hill, we're there with the truck. We got your back. We're Cash One Pond. Come down and see us. Cash One Pond. We're Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond. We're Cash One Pond. Cash One Pond.
Just kind of the plan to go to the 9-game conference schedule. How did that kind of come about for you guys?
So recently, within this last year, FCS is allowed permanently to go to a 12-game schedule. It's always been, 2 years with a 12-game schedule, 3 years with 11, and back and forth. And the reason that the NCAA was really kind of against it before was we had such a long playoff system. They were like, you shouldn't be playing so many football games. Well, all of a sudden the CFP brought a playoff in. They're playing extra games, so we're like, hey, we'd like to go to 12 games permanently. And so that starts at 26. So when that happens, then we start to think about it in terms of what do we want to do with that extra game. We have, as you all know, trouble getting teams to come out and play us at home. And so we made a decision, hey, if we're going to play this 12th game, let's add a conference game. And so that's why we can still have 3 non-conference games, 9 conference games. It's going to be an interesting way we have to kind of blend it in, because so many of our teams have non-conference games scheduled over term. So what our athletic director was working on yesterday and still going to be working on in the foreseeable future is how long do we let those 9 conference games stick, right? You can't, if you schedule a game in 2037 and it's going to conflict with what we want to do as a conference game, we can't have that. We got to wipe that game off the slate. So that's the discussion we're having. We think that's the right decision for us, is let's make that a conference game. And so we're working through that process. It's not completely finished yet, so that's why we don't have like a formal announcement on that, because we're going to work through some of the processes first, but we're laser focused on making sure that that's set up for 26.
Yeah, how do you make the math work with, I think one team's going to have to play 8, so how are you going to do that?
So one of the things that we've talked about in the agreements with Southern Utah and Utah Tech is they will share in that immediately as they join the conference. One of them will play 8 conference games to start. And we didn't really put a time frame on that for them. Again, who knows what the future holds, of course, right? But so yes, correct. If you have an odd number of teams and you're playing an odd number of games, you can't play this. Everybody can't play the same number of conference games. So everyone will play 9 conference games except for one of them each year for the foreseeable future. They will play 8 conference games.
You guys hope to expand maybe to even that math out at some point?
We haven't thought about that or even discussed that yet. We're really focused on making sure we integrate what we have now for next year, and haven't really thought, honestly, about anything beyond that.
How do you incentivize teams from farther east and the Midwest to come out here? Is it home and homes? Is it trying to pay them? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's both of those things. The other thing is we just got to have them, show them a map. I mean, they think that, they think Kansas is the West to a lot of them. Like, no, that's not the West. That's the Midwest, So, unfortunately, our teams work really hard on those home and homes. That's what we would love to do. I mean, I think our ADs and football coaches would do a home and home with pretty much anyone out there in the country. And teams love to have home games, but I think what they've found over time is when they do come to our venues, they don't win very often. And so they don't feel very incentivized to make the trip out here. But so then we end up having to pay for them to come, which is fine as well. And each team, depending upon kind of where they're at, their level, we encourage. Our best teams need to play great FCS opponents. Other teams, we need to schedule wins. And because ultimately it's about how many teams can we get in the playoffs. And so for different teams, there's different ways to do that.
I know the teams have the 2 protected rivals. Could that number increase with more conference games?
Yeah, so what we've done is annual opponents is kind of what we're calling them. We've asked our ADs to send in kind of 4 preferred annual opponents, and Dan Satter and our kind of scheduling group is working through. Some of them will get more than others, and that's just how the math works and trying to fit the opponents, but we're trying to get everybody as many annual opponents as they want. Some of them want them for rivalry purposes, some of them for travel distance, and that some of them for recruiting purposes, want to play certain teams, and so our goal, and I always say in the conference office, is if we keep everybody 80% happy, we've done a wonderful job, and so because not everybody's getting everything they want.
You talked about getting a Big Sky team in 3 of the past 4 FCS championship games. What does this conference have to do to get over the hump and win one of those FCS championship games?
We need to just play better in the championship game. It's one football game, right? And last year, obviously, unfortunately, Montana State just had a rough start, but from that first quarter on, they played great. Unfortunately, they found themselves down. So, it's one game in that moment. You have to show up and play your best football because the opponent you're playing obviously is a great opponent. So there's the margin of error at the championship level is so narrow, and it'll happen. It'll happen. Like I said, I think we have a great chance of it this year. I think that the FCS is wide open this year, just like the Big Sky is wide open. The returners, at quarterback aren't real deep in our league, right? So, now some stars are going to emerge that maybe we're not thinking of, and hopefully we get a chance in Nashville to find a way to win.
How can you help teams retain players? You highlighted Rex sticking around for a few years, but how do you encourage players to not take the bigger money perhaps?
Our coaches have done a great job embracing that you have the opportunity to make yourself great in our conference, right? And those players might not stay 4 years, but they have the opportunity, and we have to talk about it, that if you come to the Big Sky and you play a year or 2 or 3 years and you win and help your team, you're going to have an opportunity for yourself, whether you want to go to another school, whether you're heading into the NFL. So those opportunities, and our coaches have embraced the player development piece. That's why you see our players have success, whether they're going from the Big Sky to the NFL or they're transferring to a P4 program. So the more our coaches, I think, talk about that from a recruiting standpoint, the better off we'll be. But, in the end, if it's purely a money decision, we're not going to beat the P4 in those discussions.
6 teams opted into the House settlement in the Big Sky. Any kind of effects you've seen, ramifications yet from now that the House settlement is passed?
It's been a really interesting discussion with half our schools opted in, half our schools not. And that's also not a place we want to be long term. And so we'll talk to our schools about, hopefully all getting opted in for 26. But, right now I think people that have opted in are kind of figuring out how to, day by day, how does that work inside their department from a financial standpoint? If we're going to share revenue with the student athletes, and none of our schools are going to be at $20 million, but they might share $1 million or $500,000. And so the key of how do we do that in a way that's right for each school, and that's a work in progress, and that's why it's not a perfected system. That's why we're sending in, still sending in the NIL deals over $600 into the CSC, and so hoping they get approved. Some of them do, some of them don't. You tweak them and go. But again, I liken it to right now. We're building the plane as we fly it with this new system, and we'll wait and see. I think the rules of engagement around of everything dealing with the settlement will be different a year from now when we stand here than they are now. And our schools will have a year of working around it and flushing out the problems. So it's an interesting system right now. It's now without its pitfalls at every level within Division I.
Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Being in this industry since I was in college, one of the things I think we take the most pride in is Aspen Sound's been such a presence in Missoula for almost 40 years. The cool parts about our job is people always ask me, what do you do for a living? I sell phone, whether it's as simple as window tint all the way up to integrating a backup camera into a factory screen. We're usually pretty
And how much have you guys kind of talked about maybe having more of a league-wide consistency with the house settlement? I know you've talked about it before, but why decide now instead of having all 12 opted in or opted out? Yeah,
it's an individual school decision. That's what we decided immediately. And then, like I said, I've talked to our presidents and ADs about next year. It's not a great spot from the conference office standpoint to have people doing different things that I think we all need to be in. There's only 40 schools in D1 who didn't opt in. We have 6 of them. So, that tells me that we need to be there, and that's the commitment that we need to have to our student athletes, to Division I as a whole, and I think we'll get there for next year. It's an education process. Because the information came out so late, and our schools still were like, how does this work? I can totally see why some of our presidents and ADs were like, that doesn't sound right. Let's do one more year under the old rules. Let's figure out how we're going to do it and then get there next year.
In your address, you mentioned that you knew Sac State would be leaving the conference for a while. What did those conversations look like with the president and their athletic director on them leaving the conference?
The President Wood was very direct in our discussions about, hey, Tom, we want to be FBS. And, I was, okay, great, more power to you. They get to make that choice themselves, what they want to do. It didn't work the way they wanted it to, but what that allowed us over the last year was to start to plan and talk about what could be. And so, there's things in that decision. It's not just, hey, we lost a school, we need to replace a school. The question is why, right? We need them. We need schools because we need to have a certain number of schools per sport. Yep. We had softball and men's golf that were in trouble of losing their AQ if we didn't replace them, right? Geography matters in our league, even though we're spread out. To have 2 schools in Utah that really wanted to come in, and they've talked to us for years about wanting to come in the Big Sky Conference. We also, we're very familiar with Southern Utah as they've been in. We knew Utah Tech was up and coming, and the St. George area growing so rapidly. So there was an opportunity for us from a timing standpoint. Also because the WAC was dissolving, and so they had a need for a home. And so I credit our presidents on I came to them with a really quick decision and said, hey, I think we can act on this and it's in our best interests. And they acted quickly. But the good news was, like I said, we've been talking about this for 9 to 12 months. So while the decision happened quickly, the discussion had been going on for a long time.
Do you have a sense for what the house settlement, this revenue sharing era, means for the Olympic sports at some of the institutions that might have a tighter budget?
I think that because schools are making the individual choice of how much money to invest, at our level, we're able to make a little, I hesitate to say smarter decision, a little more balanced decision. And by that I mean, if you're a P4 school and you have to share that $20 million, you have to put 80% of it towards football, right? For our schools that are going to share $200,000, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, they don't have to do that, right? So they can decide, hey, we're going to invest in the certain areas that make the most sense for us and not totally upset the apple cart because your quarterback's getting $2 million and your volleyball team's getting 0. That doesn't have to happen in our league. Nobody's running away with this in the Big Sky, so it allows for balance a little better. And then we'll wait and see. Like I said, I think in 3 to 5 years, this whole revenue sharing piece looks very different than it does now. And whether that's choices we make because of it, or that the courts force us to make, or the federal government, we'll wait and see. But we've consistently in our conference been very balanced in broad-based sports, and I know we'll continue to do that because I've listened to our presidents and ADs talk about that.
Designated student athletes and grandfather and part of the roster limits. What was your reaction when you saw that was going to be part of this house settlement?
I thought it was great. It probably pushed 3 schools over the line to opt in. And, those are the types of things that are going to happen as we go along. Little tweaks to the settlement. The judges and the lawyers are going to fight over those things. And then, it's those unintended consequences or positives that come out of something like this. You don't really know until you're actually playing out all of these scenarios, what could have dramatic impact on the ecosystem. So, no, we need those types of things, and our schools desperately need those types of things. Enrollment's still a big piece of a bunch of our schools' decisions within this, and so we got to tread carefully around those topics.
You mentioned all the Big Sky teams using the helmet communications. How does that work for non-conference and playoff games if the opposing team is not using them?
The opposing teams will still have to have someone in the press box to work that 15-second shutoff. So if we have it and I'm traveling to your and you don't have it, you need to provide someone in your press box to do the 15-second cutoff. I'll still be able to use it. If you have it, you use it. Just like last year FBS had it, FCS didn't. So when our teams played at FBS schools, FBS used the coach-to-player communication. We did not. That's how it'll work at our level as well. We were fortunate to get our deal done early enough, like I said, so in spring ball it could happen. And the feedback has been great. You know, we have a couple quarterbacks here, and they said it's life-changing for them. And to have, and I found out yesterday it's 2 speakers. I thought it was just one, but no, it's talking in both ears, so it's in stereo for their coaches to tell them what the next play is, or tell them that was a bad decision, or whatever might happen.
Treasure State University of Montana football is a way of life. Lithia Ford has long been a proud sponsor of Grizz football, and Lithia Ford of Missoula is thrilled to have several of the best Montana football seniors driving the best trucks in Montana. Aspen Sound is the premier car audio and accessory shop in Montana. Aspen Sound makes sure the boys are riding in style with tinted windows and state-of-the-art stereo systems. There's always a party in Montana. Whether you're going to a concert, a wedding, or a football game, the Montana Party Bus will get you there. Skyline Sports and ESPN MT cover the Big Sky with more depth than anyone. Check out SkylineSportsMT.com and tune in to Nuanez Now on 102.9 ESPN Missoula every day. My Montana Roots and Wear Your Roots clothing is your go-to spot for the most unique and comfortable lifestyle clothing you'll find anywhere. And get your custom t-shirts to support your favorite player. From 5 local businesses who love Montana, best of luck to the Grizz as they pursue another Big Sky Conference championship.
Annual opponents, how many weeks do you get?
Don't know yet.
Don't know.
Like I said, they each asked for 4. What we promised them is our hope is to get them all at least one of those. We're going to do it in like a 3-year block, maybe a 6-year block, so you can try to even out those. Obviously, everybody's not getting what they want from a scheduling perspective. Other conferences around the country have an imbalance there. Some people get 3, some people only get 1. So it's not uncommon for us to do that. Obviously, there are certain rivalries in our league that have to happen and have to happen at a certain time in the schedule. And obviously we're going to protect those. But part of being in a conference is you don't get everything you want. And that's, for the good of the whole. Some things have to give. And like I said, I'm fortunate that our ADs are open to that and willing to work together.
Tell me about your support staff. How do they make everything run right before the season?
Yeah, we're a staff of 12 people in Big Sky headquarters, and it's everybody, all hands on deck. What I love about our staff is they all can do multiple things. While people have specialties and manage things, like Tyson, is great at running our communications and external relations. He's also in charge of building ticket sales in Boise. And so that's the thing about a conference office. At the P4 they might have 50, 60 people. We have 12, and it's all hands on deck. And we're fortunate we get to work in college athletics every day. I think everybody feels that. Get to wake up every morning and work in sports, right? So we're very, very fortunate. We got a great group of people who care about the right things, and that starts with me. I got to set that tone, certainly in the office, but it's a team effort, like any successful team has.
I know Montana was one of those 3 teams that was pushed over the line for the House of when the roster was designated. Can you say who the other 2 were?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember what the other 2 were. But you're right about Montana, because Kent and I had those discussions, and was excited to see them join. And I think that the ability to have some control and understanding of the way the money is going to flow is really important as part of the House settlement. We're going to have collectives and they're going to be involved, but we need to be able to, from an institutional standpoint, have some control over those dollars. So I applaud our schools that want to do that. And like I said, the best analogy I can give is building the plane as we're flying it. And that's what our schools are doing right now. And that's not just our schools. That's all 360 Division I schools right now, from the biggest to the smallest, are figuring this out day by day.
Any other questions?
What was the number you said that was bet on Big Sky football?
$91 million.
$91 million?
Last year.
And that was just football?
Just football.
Okay.
Is that a record?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of money. So Big Sky After Dark is popular. Yes, we know that. So.
The sickos are out there.
The sickos are out there. We're glad. We're glad they're out there. So.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.